First of all, there's a misunderstanding that Vodou is a New World tradition. It's not.
Okay.
It has a mother, it has a father, and it's mother and father on the African continent. So we'll make it easy and just focus on Benin, as you asked. So the roots of Vodou are there in the kingdom of Dahomey at that time, and the names of the Loa or the Vodou tend to be the same, but there are things that are different. You know, the principles behind the tradition, that it is eco-theological, for instance, that we work in as a collective. A lot of those things are the same, but we don't have an apocalyptic vision of the world. The world will come to an end. It just keeps reinventing and recycling itself. The big ideas, the big principles are the same. But we had an experience that it did affect our brothers and sisters on the African continent on one way, but it had a completely different sustained impact on us who survived the Ma'afa, the Manganzami, that Holocaust, which does create differences. And those differences have to do with our history. The differences have to do with who continue to exploit and abuse us. The differences have to do with the languages that we were forced to speak. Those differences have to do with the people who are already here in the Americas who got annihilated themselves. And knowledge of that, and respect of that. In fact, the very name Haiti is often said it is an Arawak word that means the land of many mountains. Quisqueya, it's Quisqueya, Haiti, Bohio. That's the full name, the land of many mountains. So we honor them, their ancestors, those people who were annihilated. But on the other hand, Haiti is related to the Yoruba word that means an immovable force. Haiti is related to the French word that means the great tree, and the great leader who is a protector. So this notion of authority and power, but honor and respect for place is embodied in the very name of the country, of the place that we are.
Wow. As you're saying that, I'm sorry, please. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just saying, as you're just saying that, all I kept getting visions of was is it the Potomita? You know, the kind of stick that plays the central role in Vodou ceremony. Okay, please give us a little bit about the Potomita before I go on, because as I said, I know there might be a few here with no book saying, I'm coming to learn all the rituals and nothing about myself and how I can be a better force for my own liberation. So, you know, I'll throw them a little curveball. But for now, let's tell us about the Potomita before we go.
The Potomita is a center pole that is found in the center of the peristyle. The peristyle is the public space of the Umfor. Umfor is the temple. So there's a public space, which is the peristyle, and then there are jevos or other rooms to the side where altars are kept, where work is done, etc., etc. But the Potomita is like that umbilical cord that connects the heavens to the earth. It is that great tree. It is the Akim, you know, who embraces the heavens and channels that energy and brings it down into the terrestrial plane.
Beautiful.
You want to do ritual? Learn to be that Potomita. Learn to be that person from the goodness of the universe, channels itself, and it manifests itself in the world.
Yes,
that's where the activism thing comes in.
Yes, well, absolutely. And I tell you what, sis, Queen, you know, because I've known you for so long, often I get this. It's like, sis, and I realize, no. Honor and respect every time. So, Queen Mother, it's so key. Be as you know from the time we've met, because I know spirit is action. Spirit is not mysticism. It's not something mysterious. That is, be it Hollywood's job, you know, for your escapism. But for reality, we have to deal with it as reality. So, Queen Mother Dòwòti, as I said, it looks like this is going to be quite a long show. Those who just came for rituals, please keep your books ready. But first, you're going to discover yourself. And then you might realize you don't even need that book anymore. Okay, so if I were to throw this question to you, then Queen Mother Dòwòti, that Vodou is the end all the African-derived expressions of spirituality that we find in the diaspora are the purest expression of Pan-Africanism that we find today. What would you tell me in response?
Well, first I'd say I don't like the word pure.
Yeah, thank you for the correction. Yes.
I don't like that idea. It's purity has been used too often as a means of oppression. It's a fascist construct in many ways, and there's so few things that are actually pure. And certainly, once human beings have been on the planet, the earth, the air, the fire, the water, those things that used to be pure in some way are no longer that way. And so I don't use that, but I would say that Vodou in some ways more than, and even that I'm uncomfortable because I don't know enough about all the other traditions, but as I understand Vodou and what I know about other African-based traditions, Vodou emphasizes all those heads, you know, it acknowledges all those heads that crossed the Atlantic that perished in that terrible journey, and all of those who survived and made it and continue to proliferate. The Haitian Revolution, while you know things always start in increments, they start with little fires, if you will, that big, that go gun, you know, fire that took place in the ceremony Bois-Caïman was in many ways a blood pact. It was an act of solidarity. It was a military act that said, you know what, maybe we might be fighting in the Congo right now. And that is actually happening. Brothers and sisters about whether enslavement should continue or it shouldn't in places like the Dahomey Kingdom. Maybe the Oyo State was invading, you know, somebody else at the time. But for right now, we're not over there. We're over here. We're going to put those differences aside. We're going to find a way of working together. And we're going to create another nation, another place, another way of being. And so that idea is inherently Pan-African. In some of the sacred art of Vodou, there is, you'll find an image called a veve, or veves are like these beautiful drawings that are done with coffee, with cornmeal, with flour. And each of them represents a particular deity of Vodou. There is one called the Minokan. Some people say Minoplan with an L, but I know it's Minokan. And that is the space where all of the spirits are gathered together. All of them. Male, female, of the earth, the air, the fire, the water, they all come together. And that is meant to represent how we are supposed to be. All of our nations. We were Ewe or Fon or Ga, Igbo, Bantu people. That's who we were back then. Today, the idea means the same. This conversation that we're having, you are Ghanaian. I'm a Haitian descendant. I'm a Haitian person, first of all, of African descent, who just happened to learn very recently her Cameroonian and her Congolese roots. I already knew about the Nigerian and the Beninois ones, but you know, I got a little bit of Ghana sprinkled up in there. The Ivory Coast as well. And then got the little European thing going on. But the point is that we need to learn to love who and what we are, understand the nature of our communities, our histories, our arts, our cultures, our sensibilities, embrace that to make ourselves whole. And this is how we need to move in the world. This is part of the reason why I brought up the issue of Afrofuturism. You know, it is how
we haven't even started that yet. So that's going to be a good 30 minutes of us. But if you want to, you know, get in there a bit, because I'll bring you back again. You know, the questions are plenty. And we'll do as an in-depth a job as we possibly can.
Sure. I mean, the whole idea of Afrofuturism being an art form where we practice methodologies that allow Black folks to see ourselves into the future. You know, no matter what has happened to us. It's in some ways a kind of speculative narrative, if you will, but it's about us writing ourselves into the future. And when we think about it, we think about sci-fi, we think about Wakanda, we think about, you know, Octavia Butler. All those things are meaningful, but you know what? Long before we had jetpacks and touch-tone screens, we had the Fa. We had the idea of the Fa. We had the principle of an oracle, a means of forecasting the future that let us know what, first of all, where we come from, the space that we're currently in, and what is likely to happen in the future. And so our ancestors' ability to foresee us, they knew one day we would be having this conversation. You know, that was the expectation of that we would be in that kind of world, in that kind of space, is what makes Vodou Afrofuturistic. It is what makes it a philosophy that is meaningful for today. So
Mother, please don't go to the Afrofuturism. We're going to get there. Now, first observation. I love the fact that you brought me back, B, when I used that word pure, because isn't it so interesting that, you know, the very nature of the question I was asking, I kind of shot myself in the foot with inserting that question there. So let me give a little rationale for why I said is Vodou, rather, let's say, the most comprehensive expression of Pan-Africanism that we have, being at the very, should we say, fundamental, taking away all the politics and the isms and the schisms, that Pan-Africanism remains an idea of people of African descent working together for their liberation and self-autonomy and self-agency. Yes, and I love how you illustrated it with the fact that, you know, even if some of our family were having problems on the continent, finding themselves in that space in the diaspora, there was no need for all this petty nonsense. This, you know, I think my beard is longer than your nose, or my ears are wider than your head, so, you know, it makes me better than you. That we get rid of all these little things that only seek to divide us. And I see that in all of the traditions, because, you know, we've had the opportunity to visit shrine houses all over the world. And I tell you what, one of them, when the idea really sank in, was when I was looking in Ubanda in Brazil, and I saw all the Yoruba orishas, but then in there was one called Nana Buruku, which I had seen is from the Akan people of Ghana. So then I thought, imagine that. So we had no issues finding that commonality when there was that need. And for me, this is why the traditions, as they express themselves in the diaspora, reminds us of that significant importance to come together for our own benefit, because this is the essence of what everybody does. And let me just jump quickly to let me just have a quick read, Queen Mother. Please bear with me. Have a nice little sip of water, because, you know, I'm gonna ask you to be speaking a long time, so you need this part really working. Okay, so it says, I agree with Queen Mother Dòwòti. Oh, you see again. Please, I'm an old man. Don't. My lack of technological use, we're getting there. So the link agency says, I agree with you, Queen Mother. I observe the Congo tradition and Vodou is the most popular and the spiritual expression under which the diasporan people came together. That is a valid point, and it makes sense. But my brother, you know, those of us who speak English, perhaps this is where we know there are many, particularly in the South Americas, that have largely remained unexplored. Yeah, and it's only because of a language barrier that we perhaps are not aware. But point taken, and I love your point. I will jump to my brother Shakara here as well, who asked the question, can Mama please spell the name of the baby that was mentioned? It sounded like Minoka.
Oh, Brother Chaka, you actually have that correct. You just need to put an N at the end of that. So it's Minokn. Minokan.
Okay, me no can. So Shakarina, you have to work on that kind of French expression too. You know, you can't just say me no can like some hardcore English barbarian, if you will. You have to put some of that French. You know,
no, you have to do like the French barbarians.
yeah. Well, you know, either or, whichever barbarian is still barbarian. You know, doesn't matter. So beautiful. Queen Mother. Our elder Mario is here. He says it rings a vaguely familiar bell. And our brother also happens to be Haitian. So I hope, you know, the ancestors are jingling in his consciousness right now. And hopefully that bell becomes a big lettering across his eyes so he can see for himself. Thank you so very much, Queen Mother. There you go, Brother Mario. Brother Mario, hear the bells? Yeah, let them vibrate the right consciousness. So, family, I'm coming back again because you know we're far from finished. You know we're still in the introduction with Queen Mother. You know we haven't even gone deep yet. Yeah, so blame the academic side of me because I like the essence of things. Yes, so we've seen Queen Mother, the activist, from where she started off, seeking social justice, which is what led her to Vodou. She wasn't entering Vodou because she wanted beautiful trinkets or, you know, the ability to work things her way. Social justice. And in Vodou, she found that direct connection between social justice and an African spiritual expression. These things are very important. Then that journey would then further on lead her onto the continent, make connections with the continent, and in a sense, seek to bridge the continent and the diaspora, which has then consequently led her to the titles which were divined on her behalf. So again, family, as I said, whenever you're thinking spiritualism, always think action. Don't think something in the sky that you can't see. That thing you can't see, that's because it's you yourself you're looking for. And sadly, the only thing you can see is your flesh. Yeah. To know your spirit, there are a few things you're gonna have to do, and maybe Queen Mother will teach us. I know that's the part some of you are waiting for. We'll get there. Yeah, but let's not put the cart before the horse. Okay. So as you can all see here, Queen Mother, I have this big impressive book. I'm trying to get the right way. Let's get it there. So we see this lovely book here, right? Now this book is also happens to be it's a big book. This book wasn't written by someone in a hurry. Could you kindly give me some context for this book, please?
Yes, this is my book, Redlining a Holocaust, Memorials and the People of the Afro-Atlantic, Wash, Kase, Wash. It's actually the mother of a book that came out a few years before called Vodou, Redlining a Countering Memory in Spaces of the Afro-Atlantic. And these works came about because, you know, before I actually even got initiated, right? There was a priest who would see me, and I happened to take an Afro-Cuban dance class. He would supplicate before me, which I found a little bit embarrassing because it was public. I don't really know this man, and he would supplicate before me. And one day I just stopped him and said, "Please stop doing this. Why are you doing this?" And he said, "You don't know who you are, do you?" And so, okay, all right, maybe I didn't know that way. And so he told me who I am, and he told me things I should expect. And among the things that he said to me is, "You are close to the dead. The ancestors surround you, and they are always there to protect you. They will always be guiding you. You work well with them. You work closely with them." So I thought about, well, what does that mean? And what does that mean in my life currently? And I realized, well, I tend to work with a lot of dead people, and in the sense of monuments and memorials, and in a way that would help shape the nature of our narrative as African descendants. When and that conversation stayed with me for a good chunk of my life, and so I made it my business. Whenever anything happened to us, wherever I was, I would go shoot that location, that place, that monument. But when I left the Shabazz Center, and as I was doing my work, continued to work overseas in human rights, At some point I realized there is a narrative, there's a story that is being told to you here. And in one way, it was going to Nantes, to France. Nantes was the largest slave trading port in continental Europe back in the day.
Right.
And, there was a huge work of art, an installation that was being created. And I realized I had seen the drawings of this monument. I was at the place it was actively being created. The holes were being done. The steel posts were being put in. The concrete slabs. All of that was in the making, and it was set to open up a year after I arrived. And I said to myself, "Spirit is telling you, you need to tell this story. You need to tell the story." So I took photographs of the place that year. I stayed in touch with people about its progress. I returned the next year, finished product, and of course I shot that. And in the meantime, in between time, wherever I went, I always had my camera with me. And I shot every single place that I knew of and I could find out about. And that other people said to me, "Oh, you're interested in this? Let me tell you about that over there." So I documented everything that I could. And I realized that this was a spiritual pilgrimage that I was on, that all these places were like altars, that I find myself pouring libations or doing small offerings at each of these places, especially the cemeteries that I went to, because they were for our people.